Thank you, Madam President. And I'm glad Senator Ciccone quoted former Assistant Treasurer Rod Kemp. He didn't really have to go back that far, because I've said that all along, ever since I got into this chamber, that superannuation is a rort, and it was only a matter of time before Labor would try and get their hands on the money. But we should also, given that it is International Women's Day, just talk about how inequitable superannuation really is for women. If we actually look at the mean balance of superannuation for women aged 60 to 64, their balance is the mean balance is $280,000, whereas for men it's $360,000, and so there's about a 30% higher mean balance for people when they retire for men than there are for women. So what better way on International Women's Day to decide to abolish super and let women keep their superannuation so they can own a house? Because at the end of the day, if you got a man and woman in a house, they share it 50%. So what better way of sharing the debt than that? But I would also like to just follow up on Senator Little's questions, which I thought were very relevant, and I commented on this earlier this week about the Labor Party abolishing the PBS subsidy for the 15,000 people with diabetes. I find it incredible that you would make it harder for these people to abolish a drug that actually does work. I note that the Labor Party continues to push a shot of the vaccine that hasn't stopped transmission or infection. So maybe they should actually stop spending money on vaccines that don't work and actually put it back into measures for mental health and for diabetes, which, mind you, has up by 10% since the rollout of the COVID vaccine, which isn't surprising because diabetes is an autoimmune disease. And as we know, the vaccine induces an autoimmune response. So, surprise, surprise, are we surprised that we actually get an increase in diabetes? No, we aren't, if I can answer my own rhetorical question. And I'd also like to pick up on Senator Ciccone's claim that we've actually got $1 trillion in debt. We don't actually have $1 trillion in debt. I just looked up just then on the Australian Office of Financial Management, and we're currently at $900 billion. But can I say that a lot of that debt was incurred throughout COVID in response to the hysteria driven by Labor premiers who got up there every day, day after day, one at 9 o'clock, one at 10 o'clock, one at 11 o'clock, giving us all the COVID cases. And when there weren't COVID cases, they'd tell us that there was COVID in the sewerage. And then when we'd go for 3 months without COVID, we'd get one case and we'd shut down the entire state over one case. And then finally, when COVID did break out last year, we were told not to go to the hospital, but rather, if you had a case of COVID, but to actually stay at home and take Panadol. So after all the hoo-ha about being told how we had to shut down and lock down and how the federal government was basically blackmailed into throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at the state governments who were just generating fear, that was the real pandemic fear, we found out in the end that hospitals still weren't ready. And they're still not ready today, mind you. Our ambulance waiting times are through the roof. The ambulance ramping is out of control. We've got waiting lists, record waiting lists across all the states, who of course overinvested in hysteria and didn't actually invest in good, solid, long-term health infrastructure like beds, like more doctors, like nurses, and actually put the money into actually putting more money on the front line for services instead of fear-mongering. But of course that is what we get with this side of the government. And just back to some of this original super stuff. Now, personally, I've always been on the record as saying superannuation is a tax rort and it does favour the wealthy. But can I say that this new rule, this proposed rule that we're going to tax unrealised gains, is totally unworkable? And I'm not saying that as a politician. I'm saying that who spent 30 years in finance reconciling balance sheets. And I can assure you that if you think you're going to be able to calculate unrealised gains on any equitable manner, you are kidding yourself. Because what it's going to do is you're going to add compliance costs, so you're going to have to pay for an auditor or an evaluator to actually value these assets. Then you're going to actually have liquidity problems because you're going to have to sell an asset to actually pay the tax. And then the third problem is you're going to generate uncertainty because people aren't going to know what the value of that asset will deem to be before June 30. So I would ask that you at least reconsider that unrealised gain proposition because it's unworkable.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.